So anyway, it's been a while since I've done any kind of a video blog. I'm still working on the stuff from England. Um, because I went there and I had a blast. But one of the things people have often asked me is how long have I wanted to go to England, and that has been like forever, basically. No, I'm not really as heavy set as all this. Unfortunately, the camera's set low, and that's because I'm using the laptop here. This is a little bit better angle. Okay. But amongst my many experiences on the blog or on the journey to get there, and my lifelong obsession with it, um, amongst the many things connected with that is I got to do some acting for a children's church back about 1980. I graduated from high school in '88, and I'm pretty sure I was doing this before I graduated. Um, so it's been mid '80s. Um, and I've always loved to do English accents. And since I've been to England, I know for a fact, no, people do not talk like Anthony Daniels, but that was my original exposure to British accents. Um, always loved my favorite lines from the very first Star Wars film, New Hope, as the Star Wars fans will now call it. It's in the opening scene when the ship's being taken over by the stormtroopers, and in the scene, R2 has just gotten the holographic recording from Leia, and he's heading for the escape pod. And he runs into 3PO on the way, and 3PO is chasing after him, trying to figure out what's going on. And just as they go into the pod, Anthony Daniels has this line that goes, "Don't call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight glob of grease. Now come out of there before somebody sees you." So, at any rate, that was my very first attempt to imitate a British accent, was trying to imitate that line. Don't call me a mindless philosopher. Anyway, so yeah, no, they don't all talk like that. As a matter of fact, that's very rare. That is what is known as BBC Received English. Um, the BBC name gets attached to it because that's how the vast majority of Brits heard that voice for the very first time. They heard it on the BBC. There was this sense from the controllers that if we were going to have a voice, and there should be a voice that pronounces things properly, therefore it's universal. So therefore, anybody listening to that would hear proper English. It went along with their whole standards of everyone wears bow ties on TV and dresses in a suit. And if heaven forbid you do happen to have a female hostess, then she should probably wear a ball gown, that kind of thing. With her hair done up just so. You have to look good on television. And that was the 1930s through 50s idea of what looking good was and what our standards are. So, at any rate, so that's BBC Received English, and that's where I started. And I know a lot of Brits are going to make fun of that because it sounds so posh. We don't talk posh. Nobody talks posh. It's this sort of reverse snobbishness. Well, you're acting like you're not connected to the other people. It's just not fair. So, at any rate, but where was I going? Anyway, so back to the question of the Sunday school plays. We were actually what it was VBS. Um, Pastor Don Boldt had created a time machine, and initially he'd been running it himself, but he was looking for an actor to play that, I and he can do accents, really good accents himself. But at any rate, he um, he came to me because I was interested in doing that sort of thing, and I had been doing some acting and some puppetry for him on the side. And he wasn't really sure, but I gave him a little bit of a sample of what I've been working on, which is my Anthony Daniel voice, which actually probably doesn't sound anything like Mr. Daniels these days. And I should call him a sir because he has been knighted by the British Empire. So, and by the Queen, of course, because that's how it's done. But now I'm off the track completely. So, at any rate, So he was describing to me how he would want the voice to sound, and of course he's going for BBC sound. But as I now understand it, at the time I wasn't watching Doctor Who. Um, a few years after that, I finally got into seeing that, and I saw like the Peter Davison eras. Um, and that was my first Doctor that I loved. Actually, the first one I started on was the Caves of Adrasani. Um, and then I didn't see it for a while, and when I finally did come back, it was like decades later. So, and then it took me a while to get into it again. It came back in 2005, and I really started to get into it again about 2010, and usually on YouTube. So there you go. Um, but where were we? At any rate, so he's describing the voice he wants, and it's probably very close to a combination of the first three Doctors that he's shooting for, somewhere in that range. But I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was he wanted it to sound a bit gruff and grumpy. Who fans are already shouting number one. And he also wanted a little bit of a know-it-all attitude. That would be number one and number two together. And I don't think there was any Tom Baker in it. Um, Having seen a few Tom Bakers, he's a hoot. But at any rate, so at any rate, he wanted this character, and I came up with a name for it. He was originally pushing for Professor Periwinkle. I have since added the name Lewis Larkin to it. Lewis in honor of C.S. Lewis, and Larkin just because it sounded cool. So it's Professor Periwinkle Lewis Larkin. I did him about 4 times. So I've got to give you a little bit of a sample of what I eventually came out with from listening. Um, we started with my BBC. We aged it up. We added the gruffness in the voice. And because he always comes in as a know-it-all and a grumpy pants, there's a little bit of that. So we gotta pull our glasses down. That was one of my innovations. I actually wore glasses, they were antique glasses. So, and I had a white wig on, because of course this particular version of the Doctor is. What? I didn't say it was the Doctor. It's Professor Periwinkle. Excuse me. One has to have one's correct associations in place. One must know with whom one is talking. This is Professor Periwinkle Lewis Larkin, and yes, time travel. Yes, people assume that time travel is set or not set. Some people know that the future cannot be determined in advance. Other people believe that the past cannot be visited. Hogwash! Absolute hogwash. The fact of the matter is that time, as we know it, is merely a motion, a motion measurement in space. When we take time and space, we really can't separate them because things moving through space are measured by time, and things moving through time require space to move. It's connected. And the fact of the matter is that I do believe that the divine being has all of time and space laid out before him like a giant chessboard and can jump in whenever and wherever he pleases at any rate. So, the fact of the matter is that because this is possible, because we are created in his image, I thought it might be wonderful to create a machine that can do the same thing. Now, theoretically, one can say, oh, that's all poppycock. You can't do that anymore. But I believe I've created just the sort of thing to do just that. This is Matt coming back. So, you've gotten a little bit of a sample of Perry. And before this blog disintegrates into complete randomness, I decided I'll wind up here. But at any rate, there is more. Actually, you know what? Why don't I finish this up and then I'll tie it up. The fact of the matter is that, as I stated earlier, Brits don't usually talk like that. um, some of them do, but that's like saying that all Atlantans talk like y'all. No, they don't. I've met several people from Atlanta who don't talk like that. Um, and so I had to just start working on a second accent. Of course, what you're that's because I had another role where I was playing a character in a castle. This is also for Sunday school, and he was lower class. So, unfortunately, as a teenager, the only thing I had access to for lower class voices was Dick Van Dyke, and that's a horrible I mean, I think he does his voices pretty well, but real Brits are making fun of him all over the place. Um, but that's because he's got an amalgam and he's an impressionist and he does 1,000 different things. So he just basically gave you a caricature of what a lower class voice would sound like, and it's based on a Cockney, which he used for to good effect in the Mary Poppins films. It was good enough for that. So that's what I had to start with. So we start out with a little bit of what's that favorite song in there? A little bit of luck. Oh yes. Then I had My Fair Lady afterwards, which was good because then I got a chance to hear Elfie P. Doolittle, who is a real awesome Cockney. But even so, what I've got is a bit of a caricature of what a British voice should sound like, and it's probably very inaccurate, but that's what I got. And then after that, finally, after years and years of doing that, um, on on British TV, we now have Downton Abbey, where I get to hear Cornwall accents all the time. Um, and we have some proper accents in some of the other shows, including on Doctor Who. Lots of planets have a north. And at my church now, we have a pastor even who's from the north. So I get to hear some more proper accents. But the problem is now I've got hearing too many accents, and I've got to sort them all out. And in order to develop a proper um, version of what the standard English voice sounds like, um, I've got to find a way to sort out all of these different influences and regionalize it to whatever region I'm going to. And this is where things get tricky because there are as many English accents as there are regions of England, actually more because now we have immigrants and people moving around and accents blending. So, in order to figure out what I'm supposed to sound like, I'm liable to sound like a complete mush and not realistic at all. So, for a while anyway, until I get it all worked out. So, I have to figure out what region I want to work on first, specify it to that, and then go with it. And at this point, in my travels in England, I think my favorite accents have in fact been the ones from York. The ones from Buxton are very nice too. And being a Derby, I suppose I should know something about what a Buxton accent sounds like. Um, those are awesome too. But I think probably like a Yorkshire accent would probably be the best one to start with because Derbyshire is just slightly off from Yorkshire, just a little bit. They're similar, but they're slightly different. Um, and then and if I can at least get that, we'll get the general Middle North region area down. And then I think from there I'll be good to sort one out. Cockney, forget it. I've done Cockney. It's a caricature, but I've done it. And it's useful for learning a few things. But I think what I'm gonna go for is like a northern one, and then this will take more listenings. So for what now, probably won't sound right at all. Um, and you're gonna tell me how awful it is. That's why I'm only giving you short samples. Um, so anyway, just wanted to let you know this is part of the journey of me enjoying being an Anglophile, the journey of remembering being in England, and God willing, one day I'd love to live there. But that's really, really asking for a miracle at this point because I don't have a whole lot of cash. So this is my video blog for the moment. The rest of my blogs will be posted as soon as I get them up. A lot of them will be on invitation only basis, unlisted. But this one I'm putting up just because it's so fun to put these up. All right, before this thing gets too long to post, I'm going to put it up, and I'll see you later. Bye.